Kia ora guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and the build on the $100 Disco V2.5. We're jumping straight back into the build where we left off in the last episode. If you missed that, make sure to go click the link up there. Anyway, last time we finished tearing down the truck and we're going to jump straight into the first job, which was putting some solid body mounts in the truck. So I'll leave you guys here and let Matt take over.
So here is the chunk of plastic that I've gone and bought that we're going to turn into body mounts. We just want something that's a wee bit stiffer than the rubber, simply because of the fact that our roll cage is tied to the cab and to the chassis. So when the truck's trying to flex, obviously the roll cage is going to hold it all rigid. So we don't want rubber body mounts in there because that could lead to our cage cracking. So I've just brought it around to a mate's house who's got a lathe that you can see behind me, and we're just going to turn our chunk of plastic into some body mounts. Is all 16 of the body mount blocks made. Obviously we've got 8 body mounts and 2 blocks per mount. So now that I've got those spun up, tomorrow first thing we can jack the body off the Disco and throw those in.
Okay guys, so we've just cut out part of the inner guard. Wouldn't usually recommend doing it with a vehicle. However, what we're doing with this truck, the inner guards are pretty much coming out completely anyway, so we've just taken a little bit out now. Basically just to allow easier access to the body mount bolt in there, which unfortunately seems to be pretty seized up. We couldn't get it from up high, so hopefully that'll give us a bit more of a hand, and yeah, that'll also, it's going anyway, so might as well make our lives easier.
We found that we've stitched ourselves up by welding body roll cage plates over the body mount holes. So well done us from a year ago, thanks for that. And now we will go about fixing that issue with one of those.
Time to just get filing. I hate this thing so much. Alright guys, well we've come across a bit of a situation. The old body mount, the rubber mount, has got this lip, whereas the new ones we made does not. That's because of the fact that we didn't know what this looked like inside, because we only took it out this morning and we're trying to be, proactive and get ahead of time and, get these made up. However, it's quite important because, I'll head around here, the body mount here relies on that raised section. It relies on that to locate it, to stop the body just floating around. I'll see if I can get this in under. You can see it kind of just pushes in and locates itself, like so. That's the problem. So we've kind of ground to a bit of a stop. We've also just started chipping in some of the rust out. We'll get the belt sander in and clean that up. Probably have to flick a bit of paint through there, so it is what it is. But yeah, we're just coming up with options. Possibly going to try and just machine down the blocks we've already got. Hopefully that shouldn't, reduce the height too much. Should be alright, but that's what we're thinking currently. Right guys, well, as you can see, it's looking a whole lot better. Managed to chip a few of the loose bits out, and then just using the belt sander, cleaned it all up. Really loving that belt sander. It's I'm surprised with the work it does. It's definitely not fast, but yeah, it's just really handy. So very pleased with that, and yeah, pleased with how that cleaned up. We'll clean it out and flick some paint in there, stop it happening again hopefully, and yeah, it'll be a good job done.
Alright, so it is now another day. What I spent last night doing while Tim was editing a video for you guys is I went back into the workshop at a mate's house to use his lathe, and have machined a wee lip into these body mounts, just so they actually drop into the slot they're meant to and actually locate, so that our body doesn't just flop around.
Right guys, so we've just been cranking out the body mount, solid mount conversion. Not really been filming any of it, however we figured we'd show you through the ropes with one of them. So first thing we've done is all the body mounts are unbolted. There's still nuts on it so that the bolt or the body can't completely fall off if something bad happened. But they're all loose, which allows us to jack up one side of the truck and change them out. So we're going to do the one in the passenger footwell. So first things first is to get the jack where we want it. So we'll pop it under the sill here and lift it up. The next step is to trim this bit down. Basically what's happened is because of the way we had to redesign the mount a second time, it's ended up with essentially lowering the body on the chassis about 5mm or so, which means that this needs trimming. Otherwise you can't actually clamp it. It stops the two metal plates from actually clamping down. So yeah, essentially we're ending up installing a body lowering kit instead of a body lift, which is a bit of a laugh, but anyway. I'll chop that off, clean it up, and we'll flick some paint over it. And the last step is to reassemble the new solid hard mounts.
Nice!
And just like that, that one is all done. On to the next one. Alrighty guys, well, another day back on Hyundai. Yesterday we got the body mounts all sorted. Today, finally getting into the fabrication, which is really exciting. First thing is putting the crossbar in that we made a couple days ago. Right guys, well, we've got the axle in, which is great. You can see the change that the upper link's made. We've now got heaps of room between the link and the diff head itself. So obviously that'll close up as the axle gets cycled up, but it will leave a lot more room, which is wonderful. Anyway, next step is probably actually going to be chop the old horrible bump stops off, and then wheels on, and then we can start cycling the suspension. Find where we want to limit our up travel, and we can set the hydro bumps for basically limiting it at that height. I just spent up all my money and I've picked up a set of these, some 2.0 hydro bump stops from Pro Fender. Basically the idea with these, they're 4-inch stroke, which is way too long for what we're doing. We only want, you know, a couple inches, so we'll get them spaced down, but they came as 4s because that's all they had and not hard to change. But anyway, the old bump stops are pretty old and crusty, and they were kind of just placeholders. These new hydraulic ones are going to just make the back end an absolute dream. I did buy 4 of these, so we're going to be running these up front as well. Again, we'll be spacing them down to 2 inches of actual travel in the bump stop. But yeah, very exciting, very expensive, so make sure to share the video around and, you know, get it out there so we make more money off ads, because I'm really poor now. Right guys, so we've got the wheels and tyres back on. As you can see, it's all back together. So the next step is to begin cycling the suspension. It's currently sitting about 4 inches higher than what we want ride height. We're aiming for about 6 inches of up travel in the rear, plus 1 inch spare for the just general clearance for the tyre. So that will make 7 inches there. We're currently at 11. So what we'll do first is we'll cycle it with the axle parallel or horizontal. Cycle it up and down through its range of motion, and then we'll take one tyre off and we'll cycle it, flexing it side to side. That's actually where you'll find your maximum amount of, tuck, because when it's flexing sideways, that's where you get the tyre to its highest point in its range of motion, if that makes sense. We'll also try and control that as much as possible by having the bump stop as far outboard as possible. The closer you get to the end of the axle, the more you'll control the, the pivot around the bump stop. I don't know if that makes sense, but we'll try to show you better once we've got the bump stop in. We've got one of the wheels off here. So we're ready to cycle the suspension. As you can see, what I was saying before is, like, if we put this hydro here, then when the axle, I'll see if I can, then when the axle flexes, it's going to pivot around that point and keep coming higher. But if we can get this further out, then it'll pivot at a different point, and basically it allows for less variation between the top of the tyre when it's all flexed and the top of the tyre when it's just full bump. Otherwise you end up either sacrificing your tyres, like jamming them into the guards, or you'll end up sacrificing up travel when the axle's horizontal. Right guys, well this is it, full stuff. This is further than we'd ever, want to take it. But it does look quite cool. There's a little bit of rear steer going on. That's just because we've kept short arms from, basically we've matched the length of the arms from Land Rover, not to mess with the geometry too much. Rear steer is not a huge deal for the sort of stuff that we do, where it's, mud, ruts and slippery stuff. If you're rock crawling, definitely a bigger issue, but with what we're doing, we're hardly going to notice it. Behind me, we've got the hydro bump stop kind of mocked into where we think the best place is. We're pretty happy with where we've got it, so we'll go with that for the final mount. I'll just pop over here and we'll show you. So it's obviously just clearing the tyre. It's really well outboard, and that mark there is where the brake rotor comes to, so it clears all that. More talking, I'm sorry, I'll keep it brief. We've decided we're going to do a bit of cage work before we can actually get too far down the line of mounting the bump stops, because we need somewhere to mount them to. So I'm just going to tackle removing one of these old tubes. Fortunately, I only tacked it in last time. This one here. And what we want is, we want it exactly underneath this bar here. As you can see, it's slightly forwards in the truck, so we'll break the tacks, push it back, then clean it up and re-weld it, and then we've got a couple more tubes we're going to put in. A vertical tube basically going from the new point here up to on this bar, and then you'll see how it all ties in later on. We've got quite a cool design coming together, so we'll crack into that. I have notched the first pipe. It's really good to have a vertical element in there. Just starts making it look like it's actually coming together somewhere. So very pleased. Well, we've got the tubes tacked on. Very pleased with how that all came out. Really liking the design. Now that I've got something in my head, I'm excited and ready to do it. Anyway, next step is to finally start thinking about the bump stop lane. The bump stops again. So they're going to land there, and we've got them here in the crush tubes. And somehow I've got to stand them like So, I know we said we were about to mount the bump stops, but we kind of changed the plans. We've come up with a really cool idea for mounting them. However, we're going to have to redo the pads on the axles. No biggie, they're only tacked, so that's why you always tack. Anyway, we decided to make a couple more bars. So we've just done those two there and there, kind of like finish it off. And we're going to be working out of this corner out shortly anyway, so that's why we needed to get that done. I'll show you our design, well, our idea for the design of the hydro mounting shortly, but we'll get that welded in first. Guys, just did a little bit of finished welding. Definitely been a while since I've been welding in difficult places and with small tubes, but they came out alright, most of them. Just some welds in there. Oh no, I didn't do that one. But did all around there, so happy enough with how it came out, so that's good. So you've got a rough idea of what we're doing with the hydro bump. I've just slapped the tiniest tack on, just threw that in so you can see. So that's kind of what we're going for. Obviously it'll be all mounted square and everything, but that was kind of just for an idea. So tomorrow we're going to crack into making tubes to mount it. So we're going to run a tube from up in this corner all the way across, and then we'll do some triangulation from the bottom up and bars. It's definitely a little bit of a balancing act. The thing that the Land Rovers have in their favour is the fact that they're light. Obviously we've chopped a whole bunch more out of it, but we don't want to go just putting tubes in there unnecessarily. My goal, I would love it if we can get this thing at 1800 kilos. I mean, obviously lighter would be better, but I feel like 1800, if we, if we're careful, that could be achievable. It's going to be difficult with safari axles and things like 36s and beadlocks. However, obviously there's very little glass, just a windscreen, there's no doors, things like that. We're going to gut the door skins when they do go back on, things like that. So yeah, there's a chance we should be able to get around that mark, I believe. But yeah, we're just going to be careful not to throw bars everywhere. But there will be a few to make sure that the bump stop doesn't go anywhere. And that's another episode all wrapped up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was good to start on the fabrication. Would have loved to get a little bit more done, but man, these builds take some time. And yeah, I'm trying to go in depth with the video, as I've said many times before. Anyway, if you guys have any questions or comments on the build, make sure to drop them down below. I'd certainly be interested to hear you guys' feedback and yeah, answer your questions if you have any. Give this video a like if you enjoyed today's episode, and make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned for plenty more, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Cheers for watching, we'll see you then. What is this?
The struggles the photographer has to go through to get the shots, mate.